And with that, we can officially go ahead and get things started. We are talking about the 9.0 release of NinjaOne, and we're reviewing the features included in that release. I know the first question on everybody's mind is, when do I get the release? And there's a good chance that you probably already have it if you were outside of the United States. You can see here that to our Canadian, Oceanic or APAC, and European instances, as well as our US2 instance, we've deployed the 9.0 release to everyone there. The one remaining instance that has not been released yet is the main Ninja instance for North America, NA or app.ninjarmm.com. That release is going to come next Wednesday evening, East Coast time. Uh, so you should all have this by, let's say, Thursday morning of next week. Everybody should have this release. And so hopefully that gives some ideas about when this release is coming. In terms of who ends up on US2 versus the NA instance, that's all based off of when you were signed up with Ninja. If you're a longtime NinjaOne customer, you're probably on the NA instance if you're in the US. If you are relatively recent to Ninja, and let's say the past year or so, you're probably on US2. And I see some good points here in terms of why we do this staggered rollout. It's so that we don't impact everybody with an issue at the same time. We start with basically our smallest customer base and then roll from there to our largest customer base. And so that way we are able to track and deal with any issues and ensure that we're not impacting everybody broadly. We're only impacting smaller slices of our customer base. Now, when you get that release, or if you already have it, what is inside of that release? This is what we're going to cover today. I will emphasize that this is not an exhaustive list of every single feature contained in the 9.0 release. I've basically just cherry picked the ones that I find most interesting and that I think will be most impactful for the largest majority of people. And first and foremost is custom field tabs, which probably doesn't sound super exciting, but custom fields is my all-time favorite feature at Ninja. It's my favorite feature we've released, and it's because it is so customizable. It's right there in the name. You can do really whatever your imagination comes up with and what you're able to script. I think Mikey O'Toole, who's a longtime NinjaOne power user and all-star of the NinjaOne community in Discord, he said custom fields are limitless possibilities, and they really are. And what we've launched in 9.0 is an enhanced ability to organize all this information. Custom fields have been so valuable that we created a lot of them, or users created a lot of them. And then we had a big long list of custom fields and not necessarily a lot of organization. And so what custom fields does is bring that organization, that visual organization of the fields and the grouping of the fields to make it, I think, way easier to immediately tell, hey, what is this information? It's grouped together like this. I'm supposed to use it in this context. It just makes the custom fields so much more usable. And then there's some other enhancements there that I think are just kind of quality of life enhancements with custom fields. But this is kind of a complete rework of custom fields, in my opinion, in terms of the UI that you use to view the custom fields. The other item that we have is Patch Intelligence AI operationalized. Some of you may be very familiar with Patch Intelligence AI, scraping public data from the internet and then summarizing the impact of the patch. Is it causing no expected impact? Is it causing a lot of expected impact? And what we've done is we allow you now to remove patches from your auto approval process if there is some sort of known issue or if a caution flag has been issued for that patch. So for any of your auto approved patches, this gives you an additional safeguard there to make sure that something that could cause a lot of disruption and add a lot of load to the help desk doesn't then get deployed out to your fleet. Uh, Went too far there. We have the file transfer automation. This makes it way easier to push out files at scale across your devices. We've been able to do one-to-one file transfers for a very long time, but it's all about operating at scale for efficiency. And so this allows you to go one-to-many, push out a file to all of your devices, whether that's one device, 10 devices, or 10,000 devices. And I see some questions here about how to um, check for the version of Ninja that you're on, definitely go to your main dashboard, hold the control key, and then move your cursor over the logo in the top left, and that will tell you the version of NinjaOne that you are on. We'll also discuss the ticketing email templates. This allows you to take the built-in notifications of NinjaOne ticketing and customize them. So they say what you want them to say in situations where a ticket is updated or where a ticket is opened or where a ticket is closed. You get some fine-grained control over what and how that message is going to appear to the requester. This also allows for custom HTML formatting. So the look and the feel, the brand of the ticket is just much cleaner. It allows you to really personalize it to your organization. I think this is a huge benefit for MSPs, just in terms of being able to brand your company better. But I also think it's beneficial for everybody, just because more visually engaging tickets tend to be something that an end user is going to interact with more and understand better. And so I do think that overall there's a positive impact on the ticketing help desk process by bringing in this type of customization across the board. And then template library questions here. Sorry, template library updates here. This is not strictly with the 9.0 release. This is out of band from the 9.0 release, but we did launch a whole ton of template library scripts and updates, and I did want to cover those because there are some really, really cool things in this template library release. All right, hopefully everybody is able to see me. I see some questions of a choppy stream, so I hope that I am coming across okay. Question here. It looks like, can file transfer do multiple files or not? I don't believe it does multiple files. I think you upload a single file. I think the solution for that is probably going to be some sort of zip file uh, to allow you to do, multiple files without the need to uh, go through and create a whole bunch of individual file transfer automations. But yeah, I do believe it is only a single file as a part of an individual automation. All right, so it looks like we're looking good here. And then after the template library, we'll move into the early access features, patch caching, allowing you to designate a node that will receive and then distribute all the patches to other devices that are on the network, as well as our first foray into IT asset management with unmanaged devices. And so obviously there are any number of peripherals, devices that you can install the NinjaOne agent on. And so with unmanaged devices, this is giving you the capability to create an instance in Ninja of a device that could be anything. It could be a microphone. It could be a mixer. It is completely up to you and what you would like to track. It allows you to create groups of custom fields so that you can track whatever you want relating to that device, right alongside all of your agent-based machines that are already Windows, Mac OS, Linux devices, network devices monitored by Ninja NMS, alongside all of those other unmanaged devices that can't have the NinjaOne agent installed. And then time allowing at the very end, we'll talk about some enhancements to the API and then some other things that we see in the 9.0 release. So right here, we have the review of what we've released so far. I would say in roughly the past 6 months, we've launched 3 releases, 7.0, 8.0, and now 9.0. That's all in about a 6-month time frame. And I really want to emphasize here that we have launched a ton of features. I am, again, just cherry picking here in terms of what I find particularly interesting and valuable to most people, but this is not an exhaustive list. The 7.0 release came out in North America in early January. The 9.0 release will come out in early July. In March, we launched the 8.0 release. So 3 major releases in the span of about 6 months have brought NinjaOne remote background mode. It has given you the ability to silently access a device without disrupting the end user. It's given us vulnerability tracking that you can import from a third-party scanner, or NinjaOne can let you know what exploits are present based off of missing operating system patches, which is nice. In the 8.1 release, which came out in April, we launched macOS MDM. And so this brings the MDM pathways and configuration capabilities that Apple prefers you to use right alongside the NinjaOne agent, which gives you the real-time monitoring and alerting, the custom automations, the software patching, the remote access, the deployment of integrated antivirus. So you get the best of both worlds there. 7.0 brought the release of our ServiceNow and Zendesk integrations. It brought the release of warranty tracking for Dell, Toshiba, HP, Lenovo, and Microsoft devices. It brought us the ability to aggregate conditions so that we need multiple conditions to trigger before an alert is raised. And although this was not on my list for 9.0, we did add in a Windows service compound condition for the 9.0 release. And then we've got plans for a couple more to be added, I believe, in the 10.0 release. So absolutely, we'll be seeing additional compound conditions expand over the course of the rest of this year and next. And then finally, you can see here iOS and iPadOS patching. That was also launched in the 7.0 release. So I just want to give a big shout out to the NinjaOne product management team and the NinjaOne engineering team because they are the ones responsible for bringing all of this to life. And I just think they deserve a huge amount of kudos for just the sheer amount of features that we've seen in the span of just the first 6 months of 2025. And with that, we can get to the fun stuff. We can go into the demo. And hopefully now you can see my screen. This looks good here. So the first thing that we are going to cover is our custom field tabs. So let's go to administration and then into devices and then device custom fields. And this is the first thing that you might notice is different about the previous version of NinjaOne. You don't have role-based custom fields. You don't have global custom fields. It's just device custom fields. And so we can go ahead and create them here. And the process of creating them is a little different. You get more of a wizard experience. So you select your custom field type. And then from this section, this is where we would name the custom field. We would set the inheritance for where this custom field is going to live. We would set the permissions for can automations access this custom field? Can the API access it? And can a technician actually access and modify it? Or is it read only for them? Or is it just not visible for them at all? And then we can add in a description, a tooltip, and footer text so that when somebody is looking at a custom field, we've got a little bit of guidance there so they understand exactly what this field is intended for. I want to talk a little bit about the inheritance feature here. This is not changed in any way, but I think this layout makes it a lot more apparent what inheritance actually does. You can see that we have the device level. What is at the device level is ultimately always going to take precedence. That is kind of the closest to the device you are, the higher priority you have in terms of what is going to take effect. But we could go ahead and have this live at the organization level as well as the device level. And so what this allows us to do is set a value for all devices in an organization, but then override it at the device level. We can do the same for location here. Maybe the example is we're deploying something like Sophos or some other tokenized installer. And so what we can do is store that token in the organization level, then maybe a location uses a different token, and so we have a different value at the location level. And so the device will say, well, I see the location value that you've set, and so that's the value that I'm going to use for my site token. And then in 9.0, you now also have the ability to establish custom fields by end user. And so this is based off of the assigned user of the device. And so if I am the assigned user of a device, I would have the ability to go in here to my end users portal. I could go into Austin right here. And then if I had custom fields set up, I would have the ability to go ahead and set a custom field value per end user. And so they're able to go ahead and exist within that same hierarchy where the organization level is the topmost. From there, you can override at the location level. From there, you can override for specific end users. And then you can, of course, also override at the device level as well. Now, you don't have to create custom fields just from there. Let's say you don't want a field to be inherited. You only want it to exist at the organization level. That's not a problem. Just come down to organizations, and now there is an organization custom fields that you can set up here without the need for it to also be present at the device. You can see that right here. And so this is just a new way of creating that. I just wanted to walk through that because it is a little different from how it used to be before. Now, there's also another step that you have to take to ensure that the custom fields you create are going to be visible on devices, and that is to add them to a role. And so if we come into our role section here, you're going to see that we now have two individual, uh, I'll say top level roles. And so for starters, we have our managed devices, which should be very, very familiar to anybody who's used Ninja for a while. This is what the device role section used to look like. You used to see Android, iOS, everything all as top level items. You didn't have a managed devices to kind of operate at that top level. And so what we need to do now is go ahead and assign the custom fields we created to the device. If we don't do this step here, when we go to the device, we're not going to see anything. It'll just be empty. And so what we can do is go into the very top level here. I'll go to manage devices at the very top. And you can actually add in default fields here that will be present across all of your managed devices. So if it's a phone, if it's a tablet, if it's a switch, if it's a router, if it's a firewall, if it's a computer, if it's a server, it's going to have this particular field that I have set here. And it's going to have any of the fields that I add in here. So if I add in my service account name right there, that would also be present as a default field across all of my managed device types. Now, the other option is to create tabs. And so in this case, I've created an internet speeds tab. And so I can go to internet speeds here. And in this case, I'm using two distinct custom fields. I'm using a multi-line custom field to report the speed in kind of one line. So I can very easily uh, see this at scale from the device search grid. And I also have the WYSIWYG field here that's going to be much more of a custom formatting experience and much more visually distinct, a little easier to display denser forms of information. And so now let's go down, I'll close out here, and we'll go into our workstations. So down here I have my Windows desktops and laptops. And so here what I've done is I have quite a few different custom field tabs over here. You can see that the Internet Speeds tab is inherited from that Manage Devices role at the top. And so what we can do here is hide that tab. So if I don't care about internet speeds for my workstations, I can go ahead and hide that tab. And so even though that's present at the top level, I have the ability to take out a field out of the hierarchy. I would compare this very much to conditions or honestly any policy setting. That inheritance idea of parent and child, that's very applicable here in terms of what you want to see at a lower level further down from the top level parent. And then you can also add in additional tabs here. So in my case, I have user management, workstation data, storage, system performance check, just a whole bunch of different collections of custom fields. So for user management right here, I have the service account that I am using. I need to add in my service account name like that. And so after I save that, that'll be present on all of my workstation devices, as well as any roles that are beneath my workstation here. So you can see here that I have Windows Desktop, Laptop, HR desktops, different patch groups. These are all going to receive those different tabs that we've created here and all the custom fields that we've set. And then we would have the ability to go ahead and hide those tabs if they're not relevant to any of these specific child roles. So what this ends up resulting in, if we go to Andy's laptop right here, and so now I'm at the device level. We can go ahead and go to custom, and then here I can see my internet speeds. And so right here, I get a string value formatting of my information here. This might be useful to have as a column on the devices menu right here so that I can see all of this at scale. You can see here, I'm looking at my local administrator users, my local users, if anybody's an unauthorized administrator, what the service account is the device capable of Windows 11? And so it's great to be able to take that information and view it from a bird's eye view like we can right here. However, the WYSIWYG field that we see right here, this gives great custom formatting at an individual device level. However, I can't view a WYSIWYG field from the devices menu, and I can't use a WYSIWYG field in a policy condition. So this is really only valuable for displaying information. It's not really great for operationally using it. And so that's why we have a we're doubled up here in terms of our custom fields. We have a multi-line field here, which is much easier to use operationally. And then we have the WYSIWYG field, which gives us all the nice custom formatting. Daniel says, can you sort by custom fields? Not from the devices menu. You can sort by our built-in fields, but we don't have the ability to sort by custom fields from this menu here. So local users can't click on it, nothing, but last uptime, absolutely something sortable. Yes, I completely agree. We are working on some big enhancements to our data structure that are going to hopefully make this a lot easier. And I'm hoping we're going to start to see that in 10.0. Blake has a question about 9.0 on the FedRAMP version. Blake, I would recommend reaching out to a salesperson or account manager that you're working with because I know that we are working on that, but I don't have the uh, dates on when exactly 9.0 is going to be coming out. I'll say in general, I would expect FedRAMP to be about a release behind the typical commercial tenant. But I'll also say that we're still working our way through the FedRAMP process, so we're not at that kind of timeline quite yet. Brian says just signed up for NinjaOne yesterday, has an onboarding scheduled this afternoon. I don't know what version you're going to be on because it is not, I don't know what instance you're on. If you're on the US2 instance, you'll be on the new stuff. If you're on the app.ninja.rmm instance, you're going to have to wait till next Wednesday evening or Thursday morning. Is using device roles the best way to minimize custom field creep? I'm starting to create custom fields for software that only certain companies use, and I want to avoid having a bunch of empty fields across the board. Yeah, I do think that using the roles is a good way to minimize that creep there. However, I will say that you are still going to see those fields as being uh, present regardless. There's not really a good way to hide those quite yet. What I will say, and this could help you out, Brandon, is that right here, when we look at these device custom fields, when you create them at this level, a device custom field, the field is still present. So even though it's not visually something that you can see at the device level, you will still see it as a column from the devices menu. So if you don't care about a field being visible at the device level, you actually don't have to add it to a custom field tab at all. You don't have to do that. You can go ahead and use it within scripts and still interact with it and everything and display it from the device search grid here, and it will still work. And you'll still see information there, but you're not going to see it at the device level. So that's all that adding it to a custom field tab does. So Brandon, in your particular case here, if there's certain custom fields that certain companies use and you don't want to have them across the board, you actually don't need to visually display them. The field is still there, even if it's not visually displayed in the UI. Let's go ahead and move on here, just in the interest of time. I see a lot of questions. I will try to get all of those over, go over all of those. And please, if you have questions, please ask in the Q&A. I'm trying to stick to using that. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about our next feature here. For starters, you will need to turn this feature on, which is Patch Intelligence AI. So if we go to the Apps Exchange right here, we can go over to NinjaOne AI. We can enable this right here. So that is the very first step you have to take if you want to take advantage of this feature. Now, once you turn this on, we can go to the patching review section here. And so if we had any, here, I'll look at the approved patches. So right here, we were able to see if we have any approved patches that have the KB analysis field. And this is going to inform us of where there are potential issues with a patch. Looks like we don't have any in this environment here. Let me see if this one has it. So this will essentially create a summary saying, hey, there's known issues with this particular patch right here. We can see the sentiment is mixed on this particular KB, a lot of installation issues. And so this lets us know, hey, we probably don't want to push this out, or maybe there's just some factors that we want to be aware of before we push this out. So that's still a manual process. A human being has to come in here, they have to read it, and they have to make a decision. And so what we now have the capability of doing is we can come into our Windows policies here. And so in my Windows patching section, I may go ahead and set up approvals to happen after 2 weeks. So right here, once the patch is released, I want to wait 2 weeks before I actually approve it so that if there's any issues with that patch, it's going to I have the ability to go ahead and remove it from my approval workflow. And so that's the manual version of doing that. The other option is down here, we can say patch intelligence approval overrides. So if there is a known issue with a particular patch, it's going to move it into the state that you say right here. So some people might reject. I personally am going to put it into a manual state so that I can go ahead and review it and decide whether or not it's going to get pushed out or not. I'll give you an example where some patch may be a known issue for issues with Citrix not working right. If you're not a Citrix shop, do you really care? In that case, no. But at this point, I've had the KB pulled out of the regular approval workflow. I've then gone in and I've looked and said, okay, well, the reason why this was pulled out is because it had issues with Citrix. I'm not using Citrix, so we're going to go ahead and you know approve this patch anyway. And so that's kind of an example of how you can have these different workflows in place. So next one to talk about is the file transfer automation. So we're going to go into the library section here and then down into the automation section. And so on the right-hand side, we'll have the ability to add in uh, an installer. And so this is something I think everyone is very used to, the ability to upload an MSI or an EXE or a DMG or a PKG and push that out to your devices. Very similarly, we have the file transfer automation. And so we just need to go ahead and give this a name. We can go ahead and select the Windows, Mac, or Linux operating system that we're going to use. This is supported across all three operating systems, anything using the NinjaOne agent. We can also specify the destination folder. Keep in mind here, if you specify a folder that does not exist, it is going to automatically create that folder. I see a question here. There is no charge for Patch Intelligence AI. Just want to make sure I covered that. That is something we include for free as a part of the product. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and say, let's do CRMM. So if the RMM folder is not present on a device, it's going to go ahead and create that folder. Now I can pull this from a URL that I am hosting on blob storage that I control, but I can also upload it. There is a max file size here of 200 megabytes. And so at this point, I can go ahead and upload my folder, and I can also categorize it. Categorization is very important for user permissions. This is going to allow you to control who can actually transfer this file in this particular case. You can do this with any automation. They can all be categorized, and that allows you to control what technicians can use which automations. It's based off of the category. So less destructive automations, sure, no problem, but something more destructive, we may want to reserve that for system administrators or for higher level techs. Yeah, so question here, how did I get here? Go to administration, go to automation under the library submenu here, and then we can go ahead and add in a new file transfer right here. And to your point here, you can use environment variables. So yes, absolutely, you can go ahead and say, maybe you want to use the system drive directory, or you want to use in the environment for environment variable for program files. So absolutely. Um, yeah, and Julius, if you're not seeing that, that probably means that you're not on the 9.0 release. So yes, this is a 9.0 feature. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we would actually use this. So I can go to devices here. I could select all of my Windows machines because I did upload a Windows-based file. And so at this point, I could select all. I could go ahead and run an automation. And so at this point, I would go down to file transfer, and I'd have the ability to transfer my important file out to all of my devices. This is good. This is a perfectly fine way of pushing out a file ad hoc. So in my experience, when I was managing SQL databases, it was very common to need to drop SQL files and then run them so that they were ingested by the software, the application we were using. And so this would have been tremendously useful for me to be able to go ahead and push out that SQL file at scale to all of my servers so that I can then do a more automated process of doing those upgrades. Now, here's one thing that I think you should look out for here, which is what if I want to be more granular and targeted with how I'm actually pushing out my my files? And so let's go back into the administration section here and into policies and then into Windows Workstations policy. Now, of course, you could run this as a run once immediately automation. There's no issue with that. I personally like the idea of using a condition. And so this is a script result condition, and it uses the file or folder exists alert that is available within our template library. And so in this case, I can go ahead and say, well, look in the C drive and look for my alphanumeric file. That's the name of the file that I put in there, has alphanumeric in the file name. And then look for just files, and then make sure you don't go more than 10 minutes. It can take a long time to search for files, and I don't want it to go longer than 10 minutes. And then if I wanted to output this to a custom field, I absolutely could. And so what I'm doing in this case is I'm looking, running this every 5 minutes, which is probably overkill. I'd probably bump this up to maybe an hour or two. And so essentially, whenever we alert on the fact that there isn't the file present in the place it's supposed to be, that creates an alert. And then we run the file transfer over here to actually transfer the file to the device. And so this is a great targeted way to ensure that the file is present on all the devices where you need it. And of course, typical condition logic. When no longer met, once the file is actually present on the device, we're going to reset that alert and it will automatically resolve. In my particular case, what I did was go ahead and set up a ticketing rule here to create with file transfer. And so that allows me to define a specific tag for file transfers so that I can have a dedicated board to view for any of my file transfers so that I can easily review and see where the file hasn't successfully made it to its endpoint. Pause for questions one moment. Uh, when will you be able to have the capability to run automations on organizations and groups rather than devices? We can run tasks across both organizations and groups, so you absolutely can do that. If we come in here and go down to our tasks, I can go ahead and create a new task that targets groups as well as targets automations and devices. So Rui, that is something that is in the product today. Definitely reach out to a account manager to get some time with a solutions engineer if you had more questions. Will says, will custom fields be able to be written to when running a script as a user? Great question. So no, you cannot do that today. Most users are not admins. The executable to interact with custom fields is behind a folder in program data that is administrator only. So a typical user is not going to be able to interact with custom fields. I would highly recommend the run as user PowerShell module from Kelvin of CyberDrain fame. Uh, I've used that extensively. That works very, very well in terms of capturing output from the user session and then being able to relay it back to a custom field as system. So definitely something that you can do using Kelvin's Kelvin's run as PowerShell module. What kind of file can be distributed directly from Ninja? I don't have the full list actually, but I imagine that is going to be in our dojo here. So if you go to our dojo and we search for file transfer, I am sure that we are going to have a list of what files you actually are able to utilize here. No, the documentation is failing me. So does not specifically say. So I would assume that gives you pretty free reign there. File size limit for automated transfers is 200 megabytes. I'm seeing a lot of chatter that that should be higher. For reasons I won't publicly say what I think, but I would highly recommend that you make uh, a feature request here, advocating for the increased limit on that file size transfer. I can't talk today. Bad for a webinar. But if you go to the product roadmap right here, you would be able to submit that request. There's a lot of people on this webinar. I would highly recommend that you go and make that request. That'll be a lot of feedback in one day for them to clearly recognize that we need to increase that limit. Uh, Colin says, what about increasing data transfer speeds? I don't believe we gate that. Gating speeds is not typically something that we do, with the exception of backup and then also with patch caching. So I think any increasing data transfer speeds would ultimately come down to, uh, local internet. Let's go ahead and move on here. I know there's a lot of questions, but I did want to make sure that I covered everything um, that we had discussed up front. Uh, let's go into the ticketing section. So we'll go to apps and then into NinjaOne ticketing. And down here in the general section, we have the system email notifications. And this is where you can control what is sent to a requester or to a technician who has a ticket open in the system. Now, typically, we've only been able to, and I should say not typically, historically, we have only been able to turn these on or off. There was no customization of the built-in notifications. Now you can. You now get way more granular control over how your emails are going to look and feel to the end user, to the requester of the ticket. And so what we can do is go into email and then down to templates. And so in here, I have created several different templates. I can go ahead and edit here. And you can see that this allows me to use all the various placeholders right here to dynamically refer to aspects of the ticket inside of my template. I can configure the subject right here, and then I have some HTML. Nothing fancy here. I think this was just generated using ChatGPT, so nothing unique about this. And this will result in this appearance over here to the end user. So way better than simple plain text. We've got the name of the company up here. A new ticket has been opened. Here's all the various details that we're going to receive right here. And so all of this, you can see just copy and pasted HTML in here. You would need to edit the template as HTML in order to get this level of full customization. And just to show you some other options here, ticket being updated, very, very similar experience here. And then here, ticket closed. This is using a third-party service called Customer Thermometer. So this is not giving you the ability to do any surveys natively within NinjaOne. Just want to be very clear about that. But you can see here, if you are using a third-party service and want to integrate that into Ninja, this becomes way, way easier to go ahead and collect that feedback using this HTML. Now, once we create those HTML templates, we then go into general down to our system email notifications. And then we can say, well, if I'm a technician, I want it to look like this. Most of what you care about, I imagine, is going to be for the end user and what they see. So when a ticket is created in Ninja, when a ticket is created via email, we're using the exact same template here. When there's an update, when a ticket has been resolved, we use the ticket update. We can go ahead and change that for when a CC is updated, what happens with public comments here, and then we can change that for technicians as well. So you get that ability to control it for technicians versus end users or contacts, because obviously it's a very different situation what you might want them to see. Let's talk about some of our template library updates. So we'll go back into library, we'll go into automation, and then we'll go into the template library section. Excuse me. And so here you can see, if we scroll over, we can actually organize this by last updated. And again, this is out of band from the 9.0 release. This is um, something that we just happened to launch on June 20th, so it happened in the middle of the 9.0 release. And so I figured it made sense to go ahead and cover this right now. You can see that we can list browser extensions. There's been some updates here to a couple different scripts. My personal favorites, or at least some of the ones that I really like, patching, checking for WSUS settings. A lot of the times when people are joining NinjaOne, they have devices that have previously been involved in a WSUS setup. And so that can sometimes cause conflicts with NinjaOne taking control of patching. So if you want to know where those WSUS settings are in place, set this up as a condition. This is a great way to be aware of the fact that you have these WSUS settings in place, and then you can go ahead and remediate them so that you don't end up with gaps in patching. So absolutely recommend taking advantage of that. And then I think we have a ability to actually configure oh, that one's not out yet. Never mind. But we are coming out with one that'll do some configuration of Windows patching as well. Now you can see another one that I'm a big fan of here, collecting user feedback. And so these are scripts that are designed to allow you to more directly capture feedback from users. And I figured we could actually go ahead and take a look at that live. So we'll go down to Sienna's laptop here, and we'll go into NinjaOne Remote. And so here we are at the desktop, or we're about to be at the desktop. And so I'm going to go ahead and run this script. In my case, I have this just as a scheduled script in policies that I can run at a moment's notice. More realistically, I think you may want to potentially have this added as an automation to the sys tray so that the user can submit feedback on their preferred timeline. I would caution that with, what are you doing with the help request form and collecting user feedback that way, just to make sure that you don't have two tracks there and people don't know which one to use. One place I really like the concept of using it is in response to high CPU or high RAM usage or high disk active time. Any of those kind of uh, amorphous situations where we all track those alerts, but it's really difficult to know why exactly the RAM was high or the CPU was high or the disk active time was high. But saying, hey, end user, did you notice anything? Are you experiencing issues here? Running this in response to that, I think, is another great option to kind of directly collect feedback from the end user. So I'm going to go ahead and run this script. More correctly, this is three scripts running sequentially. And so the first script is this one right here. This has to run as the current logged on user. There's some sort of issues here. You can, of course, customize the logo here and what this is going to say. My desktop background is black and I am confused. We can go ahead and submit that there. Thank you. Your feedback has been submitted. We can go ahead and close that there. And then in my particular case, I am actually running the system performance check to go ahead and grab additional information about the state of the device so that I have that information in addition to the user collected feedback. So right here, you can see I'm running those three scripts all sequentially. Again, this one has to be run as the current logged on user. This one will aggregate the feedback, and then this one will run the system performance check. So that is a great example there. I did want to urge a little bit of caution on using this yet. There is a bug in the template library here where the output to custom fields is not working yet. We expect to have that fixed no later than the middle of next week. So that should be fixed shortly, but I will tell everyone here that I know that I personally tested these and I was seeing issues with them outputting into custom fields properly. We've identified that and that will be fixed, but you may want to hold off on implementing this until next week, just so you don't have to do further updates to get the custom field stuff working. And Colin brings up a great point here, which is that there's a lot of, a lot of feedback there. You could end up creating additional load on the help desk. So yeah, I definitely get that there are some issues there. One thing I will say is that in 9.0, the patching reboot is fixed. It looks much, much better. So I don't know if I have a handy screenshot of that. But yes, there is an enhanced reboot prompt in 9.0 that looks way more professional, looks way more like what I just showed you there from the deck stuff. So yes, that particular issue is alleviated for Windows operating system patching in the 9.0 release. Yeah, and Brandon, we are going. You can use the deck stuff to add in your own logo instead of ours. And yes, there is a new reboot prompt that cannot customize the logo yet. You will be able to do that in 10.0. So no logo prompt customization for the new stuff in 9.0, but you will be able to do that in 10. Let's cover some of the early access features real quick. I'm going to go into a different environment here. We'll go down to devices. And so here you can see I have a cache server. And so what I'm able to do here, actually, let me pick a different one. This allows me to establish a cache server. This would be a system-wide cache server. So this would be something that all devices in this division could utilize, assuming they had network access to it locally. You can also go ahead and set up these cache servers at the organization level. And so if you're using that feature, which again is in early access, that is something that you're going to have to talk to an account manager in order to have enabled for your account. before you see this feature. We can go ahead and establish this on an organization basis, and then we can also go ahead and establish it on a location basis. So you get division-wide or system-wide cache servers, you get organization cache servers, and you get location cache servers. And this is working for Windows operating system updates. It's working for the software patching repository that NinjaOne maintains. It's not working for Winget yet. It's only going to work for the NinjaOne repository. And then it should also work for software applications that you push. So custom applications that you upload to NinjaOne and then push out. All three of those should be able to take advantage of the caching functionality. One thing I will say is I've been saying a lot about how NinjaOne doesn't charge for our AI features or for warranty tracking or for any for background mode or any of this other stuff. This is a feature, the caching feature. This is tied to particular SKUs. So I can't say what those SKUs are, unfortunately, because I don't know. But when you speak with your account manager about this particular feature, if you're interested, definitely have that conversation because this is going to be something that is tied to a SKU. Another early access feature is our ITAM. So our very first implementation of IT asset management in NinjaOne is unmanaged devices. Obviously, we are all very familiar with a typical device, a Windows, Mac, Linux computer, an Apple or Android phone, a hypervisor, a public URL or IP address, a private IP address, so a switch or a router or a firewall, basically anything with an IP. And then we also have unmanaged devices. And so if we go into our device roles here, when you have this feature enabled, you can see that you can create these unmanaged devices. Every single one that you see here, this is all created custom. All unmanaged devices are kind of unique. So, we don't populate this with anything from us. We expect that you're going to have your own list of particular devices that you want to manage. And so we can add a child role here. We can change the icon. You can see I added in a lot of things that I can't put the NinjaOne agent on: displays, hotspots, mixers, peripherals, portable TVs, projectors, speakers, ticket printers. None of that I can monitor with any of the tools that I have in NinjaOne. So this is a way for me to track them, uh, alongside all of my other devices that I'm already managing operationally. And so these can be created via CSV import. So I can come in here and say, well, I either want to create it from scratch or I want to create from a CSV. I can go ahead and say, well, I want to do mixers. Let me go ahead and download the template. That'll give me a CSV with the custom fields. I can go ahead and fill out the custom fields, and then I can import all that data back into NinjaOne. Uh, in my particular case, I did this via the API. And so I actually went and created my devices through the API. I put a separate organization down here, unmanaged devices, where I have my microphone, my mixer, my speakers. I can go ahead and go into this right here, and you can see I have the assigned user, the manufacturer, the purchase date, when it was last service, the asset tag. And then if I had additional custom fields that I also wanted to include here, same capability with the custom field tabs that we saw earlier with managed devices. So you really get a ton of functionality here with these. Um, I see questions. Is this going to be a chargeable feature? Yes, this will likely have some sort of cost associated with it. One thing I will say is that we do not charge for early access features. So this is an early access feature. If you want to try it out, there's not going to be any cost associated with it during that time. You do still need to talk to an account manager in order to get it turned on and enabled for your account. I imagine the cost, and again, I'm not a pricing guy, I'm a technical guy. They don't tell me numbers with dollar signs in front of them. I would imagine that the cost on this would be substantially less than the agent. So yes, absolutely something to inquire with your account manager. And then I see about linking. You can absolutely link unmanaged devices as related items to managed devices. You can absolutely do that. And we are looking at improving that workflow as we go on. This is the first implementation. There's going to be a lot more here around retiring devices, keeping that data long term, turning a device unmanaged and then back to managed. So there's a lot more coming. This is just the very, very first implementation here. All right, let's look at the API real quick. This got a different look and feel as well. If we hover over the question mark, the link to get to the documentation right here, we can go ahead and click on that, and this will take us into the documentation. One thing I want to talk about here is, of course, you have the ability to do all the unmanaged device stuff that I mentioned earlier. You have the ability to manage your related items. You have the ability to set the tags that came out in the um, 8.0 release, but you also have the ability to create custom tabs right here. So create a new custom tab, remove a custom tab, delete a custom tab. So all of this stuff can all be managed through the API. Would strongly encourage you to look this out, look more into this if you are going to be taking advantage of custom fields and you have a lot of customization and other services that you want to integrate into NinjaOne. Uh, this is going to be gold for you in terms of doing that because it really adds a lot more um, management capabilities that we have not had for custom fields through the API. We also see the unmanaged devices here. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the ability to create users. So you couldn't create or manage your users uh, through the API previously. That's a new 9.0 feature. And so now we're actually able to go ahead and do that. Um, Find out where the post command is for this. There we go. So here we can create an end user, delete an end user, update a specific end user. Same thing for technicians. So absolutely a game changer, I think. One thing I will warn everybody about right now, I am almost 100% positive that these are going to require authorization code flow. So please do not try to make this work using client credentials. That is not going to be something that is supported. You really should use authorization code flow in order to interact with the management endpoints. That's just a good security practice. All right, we have about 6 minutes left. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get through as many questions as I can. Um, yeah, I see quite people asking about unmanaged devices being billed differently. Yes, they once that is GA, there likely will be a minimal cost associated with that. Again, I don't want to say anything, um, that's incorrect because I simply don't know. But yes, I would highly recommend having that conversation with your account manager. They probably are better prepared for the pricing conversation than I was. But again, during beta, during the early access period, there's no charge for that. So have the conversation with the account manager, but we don't charge for early access products. We would charge for that once we do, officially release it as GA. I would imagine, Colin, that the beta is probably going to last through the rest of this year. For macOS MDM and remote management, is there documentation around permissions changes needed on the end user machine for remote access? I don't think we have documentation around this specifically. Uh, if you are enrolling the device in NinjaOne MDM, it's going to automatically allow the approvals that you need for things like full disk access. However, screen recording is something the user of the device has to opt into. So the permission will be accessible and available for the end user to go ahead and turn it on, but basically every 30 days, the end user has to affirmatively say, yes, I want NinjaOne Remote to be able to see my screen. And that's an Apple limitation. I'm not aware of anything that we can do on that end. Um, yeah, I see some comments there about that being able to be done. I'll say that we have not found a way that we think is supported by Apple effectively to make that happen. Are there any plans to integrate Ninja into Jira? Yes. Look for early access Jira integration in 11.0 tentatively, which is towards the end of the year. Any plans for iOS and iPadOS MDM? Yes, actually, we did that first last year. So you can absolutely manage iOS and iPadOS today alongside Android devices. You can actually see that in here. If I go into my devices, go to type and then Android, you can see my Pixel there, and then here's my iPhone. Um, yeah, so you do absolutely get the ability to manage iPads and iOS, iPhones, iPads in NinjaOne MDM, along with your Mac OS and MacBooks. Will dark mode be coming anytime soon? Yes. Dark mode we should see in an early access phase, starting with the 10.0 release. That is tentative. I don't want to promise anything, but yes, we know that that is highly desirable for people. You have seen that we have been reworking our dashboard here. This is now something that if you sign up for a new Ninja account today, this is what you see. This is kind of the new path moving forward. And in the background, we've been working hard on dark mode. So yes, look for an early access in 10.0. That is not going to be comprehensive across every single editor. I would imagine that, for example, policies, that's going to take a little bit longer since that's a completely different menu. But all the main dashboards should be in the dark mode early access with 10.0. If you want access to this, reach out to your account manager. They can flip the switch and turn this view on for you. I will say that dark mode is likely to be something that's only going to work with this new version of the dashboard. With that, oh, I got one more question here. Herb says vulnerability tracking from Nessus, which I think is Qualys or Tenable, one of them that changed their name. You can do that today. You can import manually via CSV. What am I doing? You can import manually via CSV here, or you can do what I do and set up an API call to update this every single day. So that way you're pulling from Nessus and then uploading into NinjaOne, and you have that all updated in the portal. If you are curious on that, just go into the dojo again and search for vulnerability. And the first thing that comes up should be automating the vulnerability import process. With that, could I get some drum emojis in the chat so that I can announce our winner for today? And our winner is Zonique Moore. Congratulations to Zonique Moore. You will be having someone from NinjaOne reach out to you in the next couple of days to discuss your prize, of which I have no idea what it is, but I'm sure it's awesome. Yes, this is being recorded. You will receive an email to the YouTube recording sometime later this week. I will continue to go do a speed run for the next minute or two of questions. What about fresh service integration? Is that complete yet? That is an early access. So if with the 9.0 release. So if you are a fresh service user, if you are especially an MSP user of fresh service, we have recently launched MSP mode in the early access. So highly recommend reaching out to your account manager if you want to give that a try. Um, Deepak says, any chance you're able to access a web browser from backstage mode? Yes, you can. This is something I recently posted in the Discord, but basically you can use Firefox, no problem. However, Chrome has a user pop-up that you can't block out. And so it blanks out the screen and makes Chrome non-responsive. However, if you open Chrome in incognito mode, it works great. So if I come into my browser or my file browser here, oh, I didn't run the script here. But basically, not logged in there either. But basically what I did is I added in a shortcut that automatically opens Chrome in incognito mode. I put that on the C drive so that I'm able to quickly open that in incognito mode on the device. If you are curious about that, please join our Discord. Discord.com/ninja1/invite is, I believe, the URL there. And with that, I think I am at time here. So if you have any questions that we did not get to, please feel free to reach out. We just had an overwhelming number of questions today that I was not able to get to. But absolutely, please feel free to reach out. Jeff.hunter@ninjaone.com if you'd like to chat more. Thank you and take care. Have a good rest of your day.